I think it becomes really, really toxic when people are terrified of certain foods. And it also means that what they're doing is unsustainable. It also speaks to this, they are not educated enough, because actually if you can't manage a sustainable way of eating that you know you can do this pretty much for the rest of your life without basically oscillating between huge restriction and huge binge. I'm not saying everyone is doing that, but that is what the restriction starts to bring you to. It means you're constantly going up and down, which isn't good for your body, your mental health, because you're unable to actually just exist in the world that we've got.
Welcome back to Plant Fueled. I'm your host, Callum Weir. Welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. It's about time you arrived. Some conversations, they stick because they're not just about information. Because let's be real, most of what's out there is just recycled wellness jargon. Most advice sounds great until you're on a night shift or trying to juggle 3 kids. And that's when it falls apart. But that's what we're tackling today, giving you something you can actually use. And that's exactly why I brought back Vanessa Sturman for her 3rd round. If you've been here for a while, you'll remember her pulling the punches on the red flags in the nutrition industry, and earlier on breaking down why consistency and balance aren't buzzwords, but survival tools in a world full of diet chaos. This time we're taking it further, because let's be honest, most of you listening don't have perfect lives, designed around gym sessions, meal prep, and meditation apps. You've got jobs, you've got kids, you've got travel, you've got stress. Hell, you've probably even got a kid licking the TV right now. And 100 other reasons why health ends up at the bottom of your to-do list. And yet, that's exactly why this conversation matters. How do you actually build a diet that keeps you fueled when life gets messy, unpredictable, and far from Instagram perfect? Vanessa has a way of making the complicated feel simple. We dig into the mindset and headspace required to break through the barriers that keep you stuck. We talk about how to set yourself up for success when you're on the road, when you're traveling, working night shifts, or just struggling with momentum. And of course, we tackle the recent sugar controversy. Is fruit really a problem? Or are we just overcomplicating one of the few foods naturally designed for us to enjoy? And here's the thing. This isn't about chasing some flawless wellness routine. It's about building a way of eating that gives you energy, clarity, resilience, no matter what your life looks like. So whether you're a parent spinning 10 plates at once, a professional constantly traveling, or someone that feels like health's another job they're failing at, this episode's for you. Just before we jump in, the only thing I will ever ask of you on this podcast is maybe you give a little like, a little subscribe, a little follow, a little share, a little star rating, whatever the platform you use allows you to do. Not because the algorithm needs stroking, but because good conversations grow when people like you back them, allowing me to bring you the guests that you want to see, you want to hear from. But think of it as fueling an ecosystem, or if you prefer, call it your good deed for the week. It's just a podcast equivalent of remembering to hydrate. Alright, to Vanessa Sturman. Let's dive in. Peace and plants. Vanessa, it's been a while since you were here. 7 months, I think, last time.
It is, isn't it? Because it was when we looked at red flags in the diet industry. Yeah. 7 months.
January, just Christmas time, and it's we're 6 months on, and still there's crazy things going on in the world. There's food inconsistency. There's people still worrying about food, and nothing really's changed.
No, it hasn't really, has it? And it's still, there's always one thing we're meant to be doing. Unfortunately, hate to break the bad news. There's multiple things we need to be doing actually to look after our health. You can't solve it with one thing, and you can't solve it in a week. I did this thing for 1 week and everything was solved for the rest of my life. I'm sorry. You're being lied to.
Yeah, no 6-week shred has fixed anyone. No, like 2-month juice cleanse has fixed anyone either. We're still on the same boat, but we're still here to kind of, wrong those rights.
Exactly. Every time, giving people the information you might want to hear. You might be annoyed that you've got to carry on these habits for the rest of your life, but we're still here to debunk the detox juice fast.
Yeah. I think this episode, this one here is going to be another one that's, I think a lot of people people struggle with, which is basically we have very busy lives at the moment. I
Mm.
think especially 2025, everybody's like on that rise and grind kind of mentality. Everybody wants to kind of like get on it, get like do what they need to, but also everybody has a busy life. People still have jobs, people have kids, people have, you know, just a multitude of different things going on. And I know I do, you do, and there's people with probably busier lives than us, you know, kids, jobs, and, you know, a bigger struggle. And with that becomes, you know, lack of sleep. With lack of sleep becomes lack of motivation. Motivation is lack of exercise, lack of time. And then obviously that then plays on nutrition as well.
Yeah.
And then all
Yeah.
the habits go downhill.
Definitely. It really, really does. And I think, I think it's really important what you said, that some people have much busier lives than us. So I think it is important to recognize some people are going to be struggling so much more than others. And that's another reason I really want to talk about this stuff, that you don't have to do everything, by the way, in order to get a result, because it's just not going to happen for a lot of people in terms of doing everything you see on Instagram and these perfect, what I eat in a day as a busy mum of 5. I'm like, no, you don't. You did not eat that beautiful stuff you showed throughout the day. So it's bringing it back to reality.
Yeah, there's been a few times where I've been asked to do what I eat in a day, and I still refuse to, because I will always show the best day that I've had. I won't show the shitty
Yes.
day. Like, no one's gonna trust that from me otherwise. Like, I'm not gonna show, like, you know, the shitty breakfast I had once in a while, or like, you know, the lunchtime or the dinner, which was like maybe at Papa John's once in a while. I'm not gonna show that. You're gonna show the best. You're gonna show your, like, you know, your oats, your poke bowls, your lentil braise in the evening.
Yeah, completely. And the thing is, we eat differently every day. I think I was telling you before we got on here that I was eating donuts yesterday. I am coming on my period soon, everyone. And yeah, like, would I want you, if I did what I eat in a day, which I'm not planning on doing, people might say, well, how can you eat donuts and stay healthy? It's like, yeah, because people eat different things every day. Just because someone's eating something not so healthy doesn't mean they're doing it every day. But the problem is with those what I eat in a day videos is that they're framed in this, do this every single day. So if you see something that looks unrealistic, you're going to think, well, I can't achieve that anyway. If you see something that doesn't look healthy enough, you're going to say, well, why on earth would I trust that person, because they've got things that aren't healthy enough in their day? It doesn't work, and your body is different to mine.
Yeah, everybody's very bio-individual, and I think no matter what, if you follow somebody with, let's say, a 6-pack online, and they're eating whole foods, they're eating carnivore, they're eating whatever they're eating, you're only seeing the tiny 30 seconds, when realistically, if you ate exactly like that every single day, you're still not going to live up to be that person. You're not going to be that person. You're not going to look like that person, and you're never going to meet that person's expectations or standards either. Because it's very much, you know, you're putting this false pretense on yourself that if I do this, this, and this, that I am now going to become this. Where realistically, it's not going to happen.
No, exactly. And that's why knowing the principles of good nutrition is so important. Just because, well, that person may not have put berries on their oats for breakfast. I definitely advise that you put berries on that's a really helpful thing to build in every day. But we don't want to look at what someone else is doing and say that must be scientific, it must work for me. It's really important to know the basics and fundamentals of nutrition and then build them into your life, however busy that is. And yes, we're going to give tips on that, but that's the most important thing. And a lot of people don't have that basis and knowledge.
What do you think's going wrong for people not to have this knowledge? Because I when you draw it back realistically, obviously we don't really learn much in school, but as soon as we leave school, everybody then just gets lost. There's not that kind of, we don't have a process of elimination of knowing what's good, what's bad. We're in a society that's constantly lost and doesn't know what to eat.
Yeah, it's so multifactorial as well, is that we know that in terms of people's health, we've got these different factors like socioeconomics, accessibility, education, even time. Some people are having children, and that makes it so much harder. So lots of things that make it hard. And it's different for each person. So it can be easy for someone to criticize someone else when they may have been taught that actually from a child. I think one thing is that we're not taught to even prioritize it enough. So sometimes people don't want to put in enough time to it. Now, obviously, we need to help people be efficient with that time and actually know what to do. But sometimes there's this idea that we shouldn't have to put time into health, that everything should be very quick. And I think as we've gone on, that's come up a lot more. So I think that's one side of it. We then also have all this misinformation online. We have people trying to sell you all sorts of things. Now, of course, like there's lots of people in this industry. We are in an industry where, yes, people do buy our services, of course, but there's a lot going on as well where you can buy very expensive supplements. You're told that you need certain things and that's going to be the key. So when you're given all these different messages that where people do not necessarily have your best interest at heart, it can become easy to get confused or not put the time into certain education that you might need. And not everyone even has that time because you're being told by someone, by the way, if you just take this thing or you just do this one thing or you just follow my very easy, ultra restrictive, terrible method, you're going to get all the results you want. And we're in a world where people are, and I mean this not as a criticism because we are desperate. People are suffering from chronic diseases. They're struggling with all sorts of issues. They do look and say, right, this person's giving me a quick fix. Why wouldn't I take that?
It is very much, we do strive for the quick fix more than those long-term outcomes. And I think it's counterintuitive, really, because I've been one to do it in the past. I think a lot of us have. We've all, I do think the younger generation now are a lot smarter than we were. So there is, I think they're in a better position because they have the knowledge. However, the knowledge out there is also pretty contradicting constantly. So you can get like two ends of the spectrum, and you get spectrums from like, the carnivore side. You get it from the whole foods plant-based side. Like there's no kind of in between. There's no in the middle. It's kind of this or that. There's no kind of like balance. It's very restrictive eating, and I feel like we fundamentally can fall into a big trap no matter what generation you're in. And although they're more informed and they're more into their health, they're more into their fitness, they're more into their meditation, they're not drinking so much, for instance, there's still cultural, not even cultural differences, just differences in the way people eat because of the way we're taught to navigate the world. And although they are healthier, they're also, if anything, more restrictive.
Yeah. And I think this restriction side of things, it comes up constantly. And I think it's so damaging. And, you can still also be, by the way, vegan and non-restrictive. That, that can be that, look, I do eat some cake sometimes. I do eat things that are deep fried sometimes. Like, that's absolutely fine. It's not a problem. I think it becomes really, really toxic when people are terrified of certain foods. And it also means that what they're doing is unsustainable. It also speaks to this, they are not educated enough. Because actually, if you can't manage a sustainable way of eating that you can do this pretty much for the rest of your life without basically oscillating between huge restriction and huge binge. I'm not saying everyone is doing that, but that is what the restriction starts to bring you to. It means you're constantly going up and down, which isn't good for your body, your mental health, because you're unable to actually just exist in the world that we've got. The junk food's not going away. We do have too much of it. I don't want it to 100% go away because I like it sometimes, but it's not going to go away. We're going to live in this world, and this ultra restriction side of things. The other thing that's important to know is that you don't need to completely restrict everything unhealthy in order to be healthy. As long as we are putting in as much as possible the foods that we know are very good for us, and we keep the less healthy foods to a minimal amount, we know that we will be fine. It's when it goes completely out of whack that we're not. But it's unrealistic to think you're never going to eat an unhealthy food.
Yeah, I think as long as you have realistic the baseline there to know exactly what you're doing, you've got the fundamentals there, whether that be like a 90% healthy or what is conceived as a healthy diet. The majority of the time, you going and snacking or having a week off isn't going to be the worst thing. Go on holiday, enjoy yourself, go to a restaurant with your friends. But the thing is, when there are these restrictions in place, you're scared to go to a restaurant because it might have seed oils or like whatever else is the scaremongering thing at that time.
Yeah, exactly. And the seed oils thing is doesn't seem to be dying. There are some people who have made their whole personalities about being anti-seed oil. We know that seed oils are fine. You don't want to drink a whole cup of them. You don't want to drink a cup of any oil. They are fine. And we know they're a great switch from things like butter in terms of your overall health. So please don't worry about the seed oils. Yeah, of course, if you're constantly having deep fried things, that's not going to be overall great for your health. But having, chips out with your friends or whatever it is you want to go and do and have a nice meal out, That's also part of your enjoyment. That's really important in terms of your overall motivation, your mental health. If those things are not being looked after, you're not going to have the motivation to eat healthily anyway.
Yeah. So how do we realistically navigate that for an everyday human, in a world who is trying to balance that every day? If, they want to get on top of one thing, whether that be exercise, whether that be obviously like sleep. Obviously, I would say those things are important, but also getting the nutrition is the most important one out of all of those, because then with that comes the others. Like, you eat better, you're more motivated because you're more fueled.
Yeah.
You're more fueled, you don't go have a workout. Once you have a workout, you're going to sleep better. So the nutrition is kind of a pivotal point. But for the everyday human that's trying to navigate life, that is quite busy, they have a kid, they're not they're very time poor. How does one navigate like getting the healthiest lifestyle for them?
Yeah. So I like to look at things in terms of layers and making sure you at least have the foundation really, really good in terms of nutrition. This is what I do with my clients, because I'm sure you probably have this with some clients as well. Is they're like, Vanessa, I want to do all of this stuff and I want every single thing and every single meal planned out. I'm like, mate, you're not going to do. Everyone sit back down. You're not going to do it. Okay, you're trying to go from 0 to 100. And when you can't keep up 100, you're going to go straight back down to 0, by the way. Wouldn't you rather operate at 70, 80% and get 70, 80% of this done than go from 100 in 1 week and then get absolutely knackered and never ever do it again and go right back down to 0? So I sort of talk about layering in. So these are the things we talk about a lot. What is the stuff I need to add in? What is the general sort of basic balance I want on the plate? A load of fruit and veg, being, actually knowing what protein sources I need. We talked about protein before as well. You're actually being realistic about that, having some really good sources of protein and having good sources of complex carbohydrates, getting in your healthy fats. If you've got a basic idea of what a kind of balanced plate looks like, it doesn't have to be perfect every time. It means that you've now got a view for every meal that you've got of stuff you could be adding and changing on that meal, so that you're not at the start of every meal or the start of cooking every meal or preparing every meal, relying on someone off Instagram, by the way. Oh, I saw some kind of lettuce, sushi, taco, something this person had. I'm going to try and cook that. It's like, yeah, you can for inspiration, but is it actually balanced enough on the plate to keep you full and give you what you need? So if you've got that basic structure that you know and you have, then you can take inspiration from wherever you like, and that's actually a really good thing to do. It's great to make those sorts of things. So you get that layering in. That also includes some basics like, do I have the equipment in my kitchen to help me bulk cook, to help me put things in the freezer, to help me put leftovers back in the fridge so I don't waste them and I use them tomorrow? Actually getting those real basics in place. Do I have a thermos to take my curry or soup to work so that I can also use what I used from the night before without thinking, I don't have anything today and it's going to cost me lots of money to eat food out? When we get these basics in, and people might get upset because they say, yeah, but I'm still eating some things that aren't so healthy. But it's better to do the things we know are sustainable and that we can do every day than worrying about everything being perfect and is going back to square one. So that's one of the first things I'll say about getting that first layer in before we start moving up. Because if you get that first layer solid, it makes it hard to fall back to 0.
And that is I would say that's the thing, like, even if you are eating still slightly what would be classed as unhealthy during the day, if you've got the basics down, like let's say you have your 3 meals and you still have a chocolate bar every day, like that's better than having 3 meals that aren't nutritionally complete and having a chocolate bar. Like, those things counteract. So like, you can have your 3 meals, let's say that's oats, let's say that's like a poke bowl, and let's say that's a something in the evening, a shepherd's pie, for instance, and then you have that chocolate bar. Cool, you've got the fundamentals there. So slightly, you can, like, if you want, you can ease it out over time or swap it for something different. But it's not that all or nothing approach. It's like, you still can have that. You don't have to get rid. It's just making sure everything else is in place so that can be part of your healthy overall diet.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think part of this, how do I manage this in everyday life? That yes, I've got a gazillion more tips, but then what you said is also really important. this all or nothing approach. It makes it so hard to do this stuff in everyday life without being perfect if you still have what I kind of call it the all or nothing approach or diet mentality. So what people might do is eat pretty healthily and then eat a chocolate bar or two. And the wording they might actually use is, then I undid all my good work. Now, if you ate a chocolate bar, the broccoli you ate doesn't magically leave your body because you ate a chocolate bar. You still ate the broccoli. You still ate a really great, maybe soya and lentil shepherd's pie with a tahini sauce and broccoli, whatever it is you have. Maybe you didn't have the tahini sauce. What you do you. But my point is, you have not got rid of that food that you had that was also really good for you. I understand that concept, and that's a whole other podcast talking about weight management, that concept that you may be thinking, I've just eaten an extra 600 calories I didn't need. Yes, that's another discussion of how we manage some of that, but you have still done good by eating the food you had. And the issue is going to be if you're constantly eating chocolate bars, not the odd one you have that actually will stop you probably binging on chocolate bars the weekend because you let yourself have a chocolate bar on a Tuesday because you wanted it.
I think for a lot of people, obviously, if you're tired, it's very much like those convenience foods. So convenience food for a lot of people will just be, hey, like we're going to pick up some toast and like some Frosties, and so you can have easily like replacements for those things, like because they are quick and easy. Maybe like swap the 90p Hovis to something a bit more like sourdough. Or if you're gonna have Frosties, go for something a bit more nutritious like granola. Like you can have those convenient, but even when you're out and about, there's convenience foods out there. They may look at. I know there's this scene where no convenience foods can be healthy, but realistically, there are healthier convenience foods out there. You don't have to go get your your meal deal of crisp sandwich and a Coke and go get like a soup.
Completely. And actually, I've just been thinking a lot about convenience food because I wanted to do my next newsletter on it. And I was going back to all the convenience foods that I eat and the things that I really, really love. So I do want to talk about this. So you're completely right. You can go out. You don't have to get a meal deal. You could, by the way, get some hummus, prepackaged carrot sticks, some pre-marinated tofu. Yes, I've ripped into one of those with my teeth. And, some cherry tomatoes and some bread from the supermarket. And that will go over 2 meals. It'll be more expensive than a meal deal, but it will go over more than one meal. So you can do stuff like that. But you're totally right. There are things like soups. There are some really great soup brands of all types. Now, you do want to add to those. So that's the thing. Use convenience, but please just add a few things. That could be adding in, say you get a tomato soup. Please add a handful of beans inside those. Have a piece of toast with some avocado and some extra salad with it or something like that. So you can make up a meal quite quickly where you're doing a little bit of prep, but you've actually, the main piece, someone else has done for you. And it's not too expensive. You don't want to be, okay, if you have it every day, yes, that starts adding up. But in terms of how much it would cost compared to going to a restaurant or getting a takeaway, you're really, really cutting the costs. So that stuff's really fantastic. There's other ready-made things like roasted, you can roast your own chickpeas, but there's some really great ones. I will shout them out from Holland and Barrett because they're tasty. They have these truffle chickpeas that makes you feel really posh, and they're really, really lovely. That kind of thing sprinkled on your avocado on toast or as a healthier crouton on your soup. That is, it's a convenience food. It's got a longer list of ingredients, but it's actually going to help you towards your health goal. You're actually getting fiber, nutrients, protein from those that can add onto your plate.
That's another one that scares people off, is the long list of ingredients. That if it's over, 5 ingredients long, it's a no-go. We can't go near it. It's gonna, you're gonna end up dying. It's toxic. You're gonna, get cancer, whatever people say that you're going to get from having something that may be 20 ingredients.
Yeah. And there are some people who can talk through every ingredient really, really well. I mean, there's actually people, to shout him out, Dr. Idds, for example, like he debunks a lot of these and he'll talk about some of these ingredients, the safe levels, etc., and how you don't always need to worry at all when you're getting these in these foods, as long as you're not eating these foods all day long. That's the biggest problem. If you're only having those and you're not eating the fruit, the veg, the legumes, all of that sort of stuff. But if you look at some of the ingredients in this food, so for instance, there was again from Holland and Barrett. I'm not paid by them, by the way, everyone. Just that they have these wonderful roasted lentil and fava bean sprinkle that's Bombay mix flavored. That's got a lot of ingredients because of things like the herbs and spices. And yes, there's going to be, a few preservatives in there as well. You're not eating these all day long, but they're actually going to benefit your health. We know that building in legumes, so that's things like our beans, our lentils, our peas, actually reduce the risk of disease. They feed our good gut bacteria. You've got herbs and spices in there as well. That's also good for the gut. That product is going to benefit your health. But the alternative, and this is a really important one, is compared to what? So people want to put things in these good or bad categories. And they say, well, I can't believe you're having that because it's got a little bit of sugar in, a bit of added sugar in. The comparison could have been, well, I just go and get a load of deep fried chips and just have that for dinner. It's about what you're comparing it to. In comparison to that, wow, you're getting loads of nutrients. It's going to help your gut health, etc., etc. It's always about what you're comparing it to. And the same goes with ultra processed plant-based meat. Yes, we want to be focusing more on the legumes and the tofu and the tempeh, etc. But when you compare those to the actual pig bacon, yes, you want to be going for the plant-based bacon. It's not a type 1 carcinogen. You're still getting protein. It doesn't have cholesterol in it. It has some fiber in. I'm not saying it's a perfect product, but in comparison to the alternative, we know it's going to be much better for your heart.
And I think, there's realistically, yes, let's say a falafel wrap from a meal deal it has more ingredients, but it's better than having the Rustler's burger that you microwave for 2 minutes and then chow down on. There's a huge difference there. There's a huge difference. And I don't think anybody can realistically try and compare the two. Yes, it has more ingredients, but what's realistically going to be the healthier option? It's not going to be a burger that can be microwaved. It's not. It's there's no physical way.
Yeah, completely. And the other thing we need to look at, and this is why there are some really great people out there breaking down this science, is it's always about what do we know about this product or this ingredient? What do the studies actually say? So people, and this is another red flag thing, going back to our last podcast, if someone says, right, this is the judge of how, whether or not you choose something and you eat it, it's got to have, the example you said, less than 5 ingredients. Well, what does the science actually say about that particular food and the amounts we should really be having or not having in our nutrition? What does it raise the risk of disease on? What about other foods that do have a longer list of ingredients, but we actually know from the science that these are either kind of neutral for our health or actually beneficial? And then there's the other side of things in what context. We all know, going back to this chocolate bar, the poor chocolate bar, we've got to give them a break. A chocolate bar, yes, we know if we ate that all day, that would not be good for us. But in the context of having one every now and then, when we are building in the oats, the berries, the legumes, the tofu, all of that kind of stuff, it really doesn't matter so much. Yes, we want to keep the saturated fat lower, the added sugar lower, but it's the context of how it's appearing in your life as well that you've really got to think of. We know when we pick up that chocolate bar that it's not particularly healthy, but it's the context that really, really matters.
So if we go back to the baseline, you've got the first layer.
Yeah.
You've got the first layer of how to make the healthier choice. What are the layers above this or the layers below this? We're basically peeling back the onion of layers on the
So I think this first layer, we've got the more balanced eating. We're starting to sort out our kitchen. We've also got to make sure that we are still living our life while we're doing this. So if we create this perfect fantasy week and make things work in that week, we're going to fall when we go back to work the next week or whatever it is. So it's making sure it is completely reasonable. Then the next sort of layer up is, how do I make it a bit more fun and interesting and tasty? So let's take the example of breakfast and oats, because we love this one. It can also be, you can use cereal. There's wonderful bran flakes or all bran. There's more whole grain cereals you can use. And if you really want to sprinkle some Frosties on top and that makes you eat it with your berries, like go ahead. So when we have something like I might say in the first instance to a client, right, let's get some oats with chia seeds and some, milled flaxseed, make sure that's nice and swollen up, maybe add in some cacao powder to make it, a little bit chocolatey, add some fruit and some nuts to the top. that might be, you know, a basic thing. You can take it out to work. You can do all sorts of things with it. Other things might be, you might have loaded up your avocado on toast a bit more with some salad and some beans or something and some tofu. But the next layers up are, well, look, what do I really want to cook every week? What are some of the things I can do? Right, okay, I love dal. I know I also need to be bulk cooking tofu, so I can grab tofu and add it to a sandwich or whatever it is. What are some of the things I want to start building into my week that I don't have to do every day that will serve me for later? So I talk about how Vanessa will feel next week because I put something in the freezer. This is going to please her next week. So it's also thinking about your future self. It's looking at that, saying, okay, I really enjoy this curry. The first time you make it, you may make the smaller portion. Once you know how to make it, you might want to even buy a bigger pot and say, look, I know how to make this now. I know I like it. I'm going to make enough for like 10 portions, have 3 portions in the fridge and 7 in the freezer. And you're starting to build up like that. You also start to build up your shopping list. What are all the little things that I run out of quickly that make it harder for me to cook that I want to be stocking up on, like the tins of tomatoes or the beans or getting lots of tofu. Look at the sell-by dates. Start getting savvy about sell-by dates. Tofu takes a while to go off. Okay, I'm taking no responsibility for anyone's food poisoning. Check your sell-by dates. Make sure that you know that really is the case of the tofu you're buying. But even the tofu in the fridge can be like 3 weeks before it goes off. So if you are, I say, wasting time marinating small bits of tofu, start doing bigger amounts and put more in your fridge if you know you don't have to eat that too quickly. So it's starting to do that sort of thing and also making it much more interesting. Maybe you make a big baked oats, which is I love. I have some, shameless plug, in my group on Facebook, How to Go Plant-Based. There's lots of free recipes with this kind of thing. You might make a big baked oats with ginger and apples, and it's basically just oats swollen up with mashed banana, extra chia seeds, and some other lovely things. Maybe you start adding something like that into your breakfast for a sort of breakfast cake, or maybe you use it as a snack. You start doing some other little interesting things that might really, really help you. And then as we go up the layers even more, you'll start learning more things that you can add to each meal. You'll start building in, or maybe you should do this earlier, putting some fermented foods on top, you know, some kimchi on top of that soup or something like that. But the most important thing is that you remember you're never, not to depress anyone, you're never going to get to the very top. I am not at the very top. You are not at the very top. No one actually is. We keep learning. I keep adapting what I'm doing as I learn new information and say, oh, actually, like I should add more of that or have a bit less of that. So it's being open to that mindset as well, that you're not going to be fixed in 2 months or however long the person's program is. It's a constant learning.
But Vanessa, I'm traveling a lot. I don't have time to be at home. I am, I'm on the road. I'm a car salesman. Like I'm on the road consistently. Like I have to fly to other countries. I have to, do whatever the person's job is that they're home for. They are realistically up there for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everything's kind of a takeout. Everybody, they're on the road, they're traveling, they're on planes constantly. How does one navigate that? Because they want to become healthier, but they're consistently on the road and don't have the ability to cook. They don't have the ability to be as healthy as they choose or want to be.
I love this topic, by the way. I travel a lot. I've got a lot of clients who travel a lot. And I think this is just a really important one. And some of it's a mindset that we need to change as well. So yes, you can buy certain things out, and we'll talk about the stuff that we are going to still buy out. But the stuff I want to talk about before that is what can I adapt and start taking with me? I mean, I even have like lists that I give my clients of like that. These are the things you could take on the plane, take on holiday. So first of all, get the basics understood. So understand, right, what do I kind of need on this balance? We need more fruit and veg. We need the complex carbs. We need the protein sources. We need good fats. We need to have not too much fried food, saturated fats, etc. You need have that basis in your head first, or you are going to struggle when you go away because you're still going away with no knowledge. Think about the stuff we can take. So a lot of people go out to work every day or some days. Get some really good Tupperware. Like that's my first task for you, by the way. Get some really good Tupperware with a really good seal, so that even if you only take out one meal, you're taking that out. And we're going to go back to our good old trusty oats and porridge, okay? Because it's so easy. And I should have brought it with me. It's in my kitchen right now. I have a pre-mix made up of oats, protein powder, chia seeds, linseed, and then as you start wanting to move up the layers, get some hemp seeds in there. You know, you can start getting other things in there, or even put nuts in there, so I don't even have to think about grabbing a handful of walnuts. Make your life easier. Put a scoop of that in your Tupperware, swell it up with some hot water or soya milk, throw on your berries and fruit in the Tupperware, clip it on, take it out with you, right? One meal done. Even if you travel, take the dry mix with you. Take that dry mix with you. You can get it through security. I've done a lot with security in airports. I've had things taken away. I've done the work for you, okay? Take the dry mix through and get some hot water when you go through security, or eat it before you get on the plane, or take it in your suitcase so you've got it for when you're in your hotel room, for example. And when you arrive at a place, this is where the habits come in. You might still eat meals out, and you may have gone and got a wrap from somewhere, which doesn't necessarily have to be unhealthy, by the way. But if one of your habits is, when I arrive in a place, as long as it's not at midnight, I go to the supermarket and I stock up on some fruit, some salad. If you don't have a fridge, pick the stuff that doesn't need to be in the fridge. Pick, a cucumber that will be fine without being in the fridge. Pick a few things like that, or a pepper or something like that, or capsicum if someone from the US is listening to this. Have some of that stuff in your hotel room. If you don't have a fridge, it doesn't matter, because you can pick the apples and the bananas and the things that don't need a fridge. So you're building these little bits in. And if you're, say, like a lorry driver, I actually worked with someone who was a lorry driver. We did the oats. We picked things like the fruit. We even had roasted chickpeas left in the lorry in an airtight container. Don't attract pests, everyone. It's these little things that go around those other meals. And then there's a separate conversation of, okay, what are some of the healthier choices we could make when we're out?
Mm. And I do think that, and I would say, even if you don't have the ability to do all those things and you are only eating out, multiple places, multiple service stations, multiple everywhere these days have places with realistically poke bowls and things like that consistently now. They've become a huge thing in the last, I'd say 2-3 years more than anything. And you can find those in service stations. You can find them in, your local high street if you don't have the time, where you can pick up something that is literally rice, salad, some other bits and pieces, and some tofu on top, and maybe a bit of fruit or nuts inside. If you don't have the ability to be at home, you have those options there. You don't have to go for the McDonald's.
This is true. We have had a real change in landscape. I mean, there might be some towns you go into and people are saying, where's this Pokeball place, Callum? I don't see it. But in a lot of big cities, yes, this has really, really changed. This is another part of the layering as well, is knowing the places you could go to. And again, I do this for my clients. I know, right, where do you live? Where do you live? That sounds, well, no, I don't check where you live. We look at, right, what town are you in? Where are you traveling to? Let's look at what the options actually are there. I live in London and I know the places, and I'm lucky to live in London because London has some really, really great places, but people are really struggling with their health. There's a place called Sushi Dog, for example, where you can get a massive tofu sushi wrap. So I can have that if I'm really hungry, and it's about £8 or £9. Might be getting that wrong. If I need that on the way home from work and I'm, I'm really hungry, don't want to cook when I get home, I can have that. It's probably cheaper than a lot of takeaways as well. There are some poke bowl places as well. You can go to restaurants and make sure you're still ordering a side salad. I know that gets expensive, but if you're doing it on, corporate expenses, then of course that you have a bigger budget for a meal out, because they know that you need to spend money on having proper food. Doing a bit of pre-work of, right, what can I eat that is more healthy? Even if you just try Google searches or use ChatGPT, they'll probably help you really, really well. What are some of the healthy options that I can eat out and get a takeout from in this area? And it will collate from so many places what those are. So doing that bit of work beforehand, a lot of it's in the prep, isn't it? That's what really helps you in terms of maintaining this, is having the habit of, I do actually take a couple of minutes just to check what's in the area to help me stay healthy.
Yeah, it's just having that prior knowledge and prior ability to prep, the ability to prep maybe, the day before, like 10 minutes before, just kind of like looking what's healthy in my area. Like what is the option I can get in this area? And, sometimes there's going to be options. Sometimes there's not going to be options. But you have to deal with what you've got sometimes when you are traveling. And if that does mean like prepping the night before, like some oats, whether that be creating something for lunch, or whether that be, as you said, like chickpeas or something like that roasted, there's always a way around it. And as you say, going through an airport with things as well. Like I've had things taken off me. I've had things. It's surprising what you can get on a plane, to be fair. Like I've managed to get a coconut on the plane before, and like surprisingly, because it is a liquid, but also it's concealed in a coconut, so you can get that through.
Oh, here we go. If you want the most accessible food in the world, what a coconut. Yeah, there's always a way around it, and that preparation is just really, really important. I mean, just an example, I had a client in my local area, and he was doing really, really well, and then I bumped into him. He probably loved bumping into me. Oh, here she is again. And for lunch, he said, "Oh, Vanessa, I'm just struggling a bit. Like, I'm just getting busy again, and I just went to Greg's for lunch, and that is where you basically eat pastry for lunch." And he said, "I feel really awful." I said, "Well, look, you can still have Greg's sometimes." But did you know that literally 2 doors down is a massive Marks and Spencer's and a Sainsbury's? And he was like, "Well, yes, of course I did know that, Vanessa." But he had never considered, and that's fine. And this is the thing, is that some of this sounds, so some people might say, "Vanessa, this sounds basic, I know this," but a lot of people don't. He didn't realize when I said, right, if we go into Marks and Spencer's, we can get a pack of falafels, we can get a bit of tofu, we can get some salad, we can get some really nice bread and make a big sandwich. It's a lot healthier. And he was like, "Okay, I'm just going to do that next time." And he's like, "Now that you've said it, it makes sense." But what he was displaying is what a lot of people do. And it's not something to feel bad about. This, what happens, you go past, "Okay, I'm just going to grab a sandwich from Greg's." That's what a lot of people might do. Now, if you still want to go and have the vegan sausage roll from Greg's after because you want that, fine. But that is not in itself going to be a sustainable lunch for you.
I have to let you go in a second. Before we cut off, there's something that's come into my inbox quite a few times in the last 3 or 4 days, and there's somebody's mentioned something online, and I'm sure you've probably seen it. I'm not going to name the person, but the sugar in fruit at the moment is, I think you may know who I'm on about as well. I'm a very big person, but apparently the sugar in fruit is now bad, and it is the same as the sugar, and because he had a Jaffa cake, it then led to a relapse, and now he's eating fruit again. Very big person, but it's kind of scaremongered a lot of people into worrying if apples or pears are as bad as they seem.
Yeah, I find this really, really worrying, and it's been a discussion I've had with a few people, due to have more discussions as well. Yes, it's complete misinformation. So this person you're talking about now, this person has done a lot of good for the country, a lot of good for getting people active. He really is brilliant, and he has got a lot of people behind him. But he is also putting out misinformation. Now, misinformation isn't necessarily put out on purpose. That's the thing about misinformation. People might have a good intent. There's a huge problem around this. So not only is this causing people to be really scared of foods, they are now being scared of foods that are perfectly healthy and that actually we need to eat more of. So only about a third of adults are getting 5 pieces of fruit and veg a day. And we need to be getting more than 5 pieces of fruit and veg a day. That should be a minimum. So what this is doing is actually getting people eating less foods that are healthy. We know fruit is so, I can't believe we sit here talking about fruit being healthy. We thought we'd be doing something else by 2025, didn't we? But here we are talking, trying to convince everyone fruit is healthy. And we know this from the science. Okay, we know this from the science. When we eat more fruit, it has really great outcomes. It can help improve performance, blood flow. It helps reduce the risk of disease. It has micronutrients. It's so great, by the way, if you want to stay a healthy weight. If I was starting all over again, I'd start by building in more fruit because it is also low calorie density. It fills you up with a high water content. it's really, really great. And it's really helpful when people are also trying to have good weight management. So there's every reason to eat fruit. And we know this from the science. And it is so different from eating a Jaffa cake.
Mm.
We
And
know that. Sorry, go on.
I was
You
about to
go.
say, it's literally a pear and it's not crack. Like you can eat it. It's absolutely fine.
And I think this is also an important point about what he said in terms of relapse. Sugar is not the same as cocaine, by the way. You can have some stuff that's got sugar in your life, and it's not like having a dab of cocaine every day, by the way. The other important thing to remember about these foods where people talk about all the sugar in them, a lot of these foods probably have more calories coming from fat than they do from sugar. So something like, I don't know if the Jaffa cakes, I need to go and look at the composition of Jaffa cakes. The reason they are so tasty is because of this mixture of sugar, fat, and often, sometimes salt. They're hyper palatable. They're designed for us to eat them. That's why we really like them. But please remember, they're not just pure sugar. They are tasty because of this combination. And the saturated fat in these as well is also not great for you. But sugar is having a huge moment at the moment, not in a good way. I'm not saying we should be adding extra sugar into our diet, but this idea that fruit is not healthy is ridiculous. But even this idea that having the odd biscuit is, you need to go to the Priory because you had a biscuit, again, is pure fear mongering. And this person probably ate this packet of Jaffa cakes. By the way, I think we've all eaten a packet of Jaffa cakes. I'll raise you on this to 2 packets of Jaffa cakes. That you are probably much more likely to want to go and do that if you're completely cutting it out. And if we eat more fruit, because of the sugar in fruit, and fruit is sweet, it helps actually satisfy some of those sweet cravings. So eating fruit is actually going to help you probably want less biscuits, ironically, at the end of this.
Vanessa, it's been a pleasure, as always. For the people that do want to find you, where can they find you? I assume it's the same places as usual.
Yes, it is. But just type in Vanessa Sturman to any platform, whether that is LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. You can send me a message, by the way. I'm always happy to help. I do coach people. I am also a speaker. So yes, please get in touch. I'm very accessible like that. And also, please always get in touch with Callum as well. He's really helpful and amazing with clients. So yeah, I was going to shout out Callum at the same time.
Vanessa, it's been a pleasure. Grateful for you, as always.
Thank you so much.